The Missouri Compromise in 1820 made sure that no slave states could be above 3630 parallel line. The Manifest Destiny was succeeded in by James K. Polk when the United States was expanded all the way west to the Pacific Ocean. The North had tariffs in favor to protect their industry, while the South tried to nullify, which caused tensions. The Wilmot Proviso was made by, suggested by a Democratic representative, David Wilmot, attempting to prevent slavery in the Mexican Turner's rebellion resulted in 60 white American deaths made up of women, children, and slave masters. The Free Soil Party was a party trying to prevent slavery to expanding out west, led by Abraham Lincoln.
The formation of the Republican Party was formed by the anti-slavery Whigs and the Free Soil Democrats joined together. Harriet Tubman and the Underground Railroad. Harriet Tubman led over 300 slaves to escape from their slavery. The Kansas and Nebraska Act was a decision made by Kansas and Nebraska to see if they wanted slavery or not. After the Kansas-Nebraska Act came Bleeding Kansas, which came from people illegally voting, which caused battles. Famous abolitionists were William Lloyd Garrison, who came up with the American Anti-Slavery Society, and the Liberator. The Grimke sisters supported women's rights. Harriet Beecher Stowe wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, which was a bestseller. The Compromise of 1850 was made up of 4 parts, which came up with Washington, D.C. has no more slaves. California would be now declared as a free state. Fugitive slave laws were strengthened, and Utah and New Mexico would vote if they would want slavery or not.
The Dred Scott versus Sanford case. Dred Scott was a slave in Missouri but resided in Illinois. He tried to buy his freedom because Illinois was a free state, but they denied him. He tried to sue the state and the federal court system over this. The Supreme Court said that, quote, a Negro whose ancestors were imported as slaves into the U.S., whether enslaved or free, could not be an American citizen and therefore not able to sue in a court of law. Shots fired at Fort Sumter. Early in the morning of April 12, 1861, a bombshell exploded above Fort Sumter, which was occupied by the Union but was in the South. This marked the beginning of the Civil War. The Lincoln versus Douglas debates. They were also known as the Great Debates of 1858. Republican candidate for Senator of Illinois, Abraham Lincoln, and Democratic candidate Stephen Douglas faced off in a string of 7 debates over the topic of extending slavery into the Western territories. South Carolina secedes. South Carolina was tired of being pushed around by the elite North and seceded from the Union in December of 1860, joining the Confederacy in April of 1861. The election of Abraham Lincoln. The election of 1860 was maybe the most important in U.S. history. It saw Abraham Lincoln, Republican, beat Stephen Douglas, Democrat, for the job of president. Lincoln was president for all of the Civil War, and it was also the most bloody in U.S. history, and the emancipation of slaves in 1865. John Brown's raid. On October 16, 1859, John Brown led a small army of 18 men to a weapons arsenal in Harper's Ferry in an attempt to steal weapons, arm local slaves, and inspire a slave rebellion. But John Brown's men were all killed, and Brown was captured, tried, and sentenced to death.